The sun was dying. Every scientist on Earth agreed. In 50 years, maybe less, the star that had given life to humanity would expand and swallow everything they had ever known. Cities, oceans, mountains, memories, all of it would burn. So humanity did what it had always done when faced with extinction. It refused to accept death. The Exodus fleet took 30 years to build. 12 massive ships, each one 5 kilometers long, carrying 50,000 sleeping souls. They stripped the planet of resources. They worked through wars and plagues and disasters. Nothing stopped them. Nothing could stop them. Survival was the only goal that mattered. Park was 42 years old when he volunteered to captain the final ship. That was the last vessel to leave Earth's orbit. He stood on the bridge and watched his home planet grow smaller through the viewing window. Blue and green and white, beautiful and doomed. "Course locked," said Lieutenant. She was young, barely 30, with short black hair and eyes that never seemed to blink. A Marine commander before the evacuation, she had requested transfer to the specifically. Never asked why. Everyone had their reasons for wanting to be on the last ship out. "Time to destination?" asked. 312 years, sir." 300 years. Would enter at 42 and wake up the same age in a future he could not imagine. Everyone he had ever known on Earth was already dead or dying. The sun would have consumed everything by the time he opened his eyes again. "Begin cryogenic protocols," he ordered. "All hands to sleep stations." The hummed with activity as 50,000 people prepared to die temporarily. That was what felt like, according to the scientists, death. The body shut down. The mind went dark. Dreams did not exist in that frozen state. One moment you were alive, the next moment you were nothing, and then suddenly you were alive again and centuries had passed. Engineer ran final checks on the life support systems. She was small, quiet, the kind of person who preferred machines to people. Her hands moved across the control panels with practiced ease. "All systems nominal," she reported. "We can sleep for 1,000 years if we have to." "Let us hope we do not have to," replied Doctor, the ship's chief medical officer, and supervised the pod assignments. He was an older man, nearly 60, with gray hair and kind eyes. He had spent his career studying the possibility of alien life. Now he would have the chance to find it. "Strange," he murmured as past his station. "We are running from death, but we will spend centuries in a state that looks exactly like death. Philosophers would have much to say about this." "Philosophers can say whatever they want after we wake up," said. "For now, just make sure everyone sleeps safely." One by one, the crew entered their pods. Watched them go, soldiers, scientists, doctors, teachers, farmers, children. The future of humanity, packed into glass coffins and frozen in time. Was one of the last. She paused at her pod and looked back at the captain. "Sir, permission to speak freely." "Granted." "We might wake up to nothing. The other ships might fail. We might be the only humans left. Have you thought about that?" Had thought about it every day since he accepted command. The weight of it never got lighter. "If that happens," he said, "then we will be enough. 50,000 people rebuilt civilization before. We can do it again." Nodded slowly. She did not look convinced, but she did not argue. She climbed into her pod and closed her eyes. Frost began forming on the glass almost immediately. Was the last to sleep. He stood alone on the bridge looking at the stars. Somewhere out there, 11 other ships carried humanity toward a new home. Somewhere out there, a planet called 442b waited for them. Green and blue like Earth, breathable air, fresh water, a second chance. "Computer," he said, "activate autonomous navigation. Wake the crew upon arrival at destination." "Confirmed," the AI responded. "Estimated arrival, 312 years, 4 months, 17 days. If anything goes wrong, wake me first." "Confirmed." Walked to his pod. He did not hurry. There was no point in hurrying toward 3 centuries of darkness. He climbed inside and felt the cold embrace him like an old friend. His last thought before the darkness took him was a simple one: please let them be safe. Please let us wake up. Then there was nothing. They sailed through the void, silent and patient. Years passed, then decades, then centuries. The ship's AI monitored everything, adjusting course, repairing minor damage, keeping the sleeping humans alive. 100 years into the journey, the AI detected something strange: energy signatures in the target system, movement, ships. The AI analyzed the data and reached a conclusion that changed everything. Hostile presence detected. The AI followed its emergency protocols. It could not wake the crew for a battle they could not win. Instead, it chose survival. The changed course, sending signals to the other Exodus ships. One by one, the fleet diverted, hiding in the shadow of a dead gas giant at the edge of the galaxy. There, in the darkness between stars, humanity slept on. The AI did not know what was happening in the galaxy. It did not understand war or conquest or extinction. It only knew that the humans must survive, and so it kept them hidden and frozen and safe. 200 more years passed. The galaxy outside changed beyond recognition. Empires rose and fell. Species died by the billions. A great darkness spread across the stars, consuming everything in its path. And still humanity slept. 50,000 dreams that did not exist. 50,000 hearts that did not beat. 50,000 futures waiting in the cold, unaware that the universe had become a place of nightmares. Park floated in nothing, feeling nothing, knowing nothing. He had no way of knowing that his 300-year nap would stretch into something longer. He had no way of knowing that when he finally woke, it would not be to a new home and a fresh start. It would be to war. They drifted in the shadows, patient and quiet, waiting for the moment when the darkness outside would finally notice the sleeping prey within. That moment was coming soon. They came from a dead world. Their planet had been harsh, cruel, and unforgiving. Only the strongest survived. Only the most brutal thrived. They learned early that mercy was weakness and weakness meant death. When they finally reached the stars, they brought that lesson with them. Overlord stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Devourer, and watched another world burn. The planet below had been home to the Lumen, a peaceful species known for their art and music and philosophy. They had welcomed them with open arms, believing that all intelligent beings desired friendship. They were wrong. His mandibles clicked with satisfaction as the bombardment continued. His body was massive, covered in black chitin armor that had never been pierced. 6 legs held him steady. 4 arms ended in claws that could tear through metal. His eyes, compound and unblinking, reflected the orange glow of the dying world. "Report," he commanded. His voice was like stones grinding together. 93% of the surface has been cleansed," his second-in-command replied. "Survivors are being collected for processing." Processing. Such a clean word for slavery. The Lumen who survived would spend the rest of their short lives working in mines, their beautiful voices silenced forever. "Good," said. "Prepare the fleet. We move to the next system." The Dominion had conquered 3 galactic arms in 2 centuries. They were unstoppable. Every species they encountered fell before them, some quickly, some slowly, but all of them eventually. Though with their great libraries and scientific minds had tried to negotiate. The fierce warriors with a proud tradition had tried to fight. Neither approach made any difference. They did not want peace. They did not want trade or diplomacy or cooperation. They wanted everything, and they took it without hesitation. Had led the Dominion for 60 years. He had personally overseen the extinction of 12 species. Their skulls decorated his private chambers, trophies of conquest. He considered himself an artist, painting the galaxy in blood and fire. "Overlord," a communications officer called out. "We have received a report from Scout Fleet 7. "Speaker." They have discovered something unusual at the edge of the galaxy, a fleet of unknown vessels. The design does not match any species in our records. Turned slowly. Unknown vessels meant unknown species. Unknown species meant new resources, new slaves, new trophies. Show me. The viewing screen flickered to life, displaying images captured by the scout ships. 12 large vessels drifted in the shadow of a gas giant. Their design was primitive, no visible weapons, basic propulsion systems, outdated hull materials. They looked like relics from a less advanced age. Life signs? Asked. Positive, thousands of warm-blooded organisms aboard each vessel, but they appear to be dormant. Dormant. Sleeping overlord, some kind of preservation technology. They have been asleep for a very long time. Studied the images with growing interest. A sleeping prey was the easiest prey. No resistance, no complications, just collection and processing. Do we have identification of the species? The officer hesitated. There are records, Overlord, but they are very old, over 300 years. The species is called human, from a planet called Earth. Our ancestors dismissed them as myth. Myth. Earth was destroyed by its dying star. We assumed all humans perished with it. Apparently, some escaped. His mandibles spread in what passed for a smile among his kind. Survivors, refugees, the weakest and most desperate, frozen in time and utterly helpless. How many ships did they send? 12, Overlord, but our scouts have only located 11. One appears to be missing. Find it later. For now, these 11 will do. Dispatch a harvesting fleet. I want these humans captured and brought to me alive. I wish to study them before we decide their fate. How many ships shall we send? Considered the question. The human vessels were primitive and defenseless. Sending too many ships would be wasteful. 12 warships, one for each human vessel. That should be more than enough. The order went out across the Dominion communication network. 12 warships changed course, heading for the edge of the galaxy. Their crews were eager. Easy prey meant easy glory. None of them understood what they were about to wake. Back on the Devourer, returned his attention to more important matters. The lumen was still burning. Refugees were still being processed. The grand work of conquest continued without pause. He did not spare another thought for the sleeping humans. They were insignificant, soft creatures with no claws, no armor, no venom. They had run from their dying world and hidden at the edge of nowhere. They were already defeated. They simply did not know it yet. In the darkness of space, the 12 warships traveled toward their destination. They were the finest vessels in the Dominion fleet, each one carrying 5,000 soldiers and enough firepower to level a continent. Commander Vex led the harvesting fleet. He was younger than but just as cruel, eager to prove himself worthy of promotion. He had never failed a mission. He did not expect this one to be any different. Time to target, he asked. 14 standard cycles, Commander. Good, prepare the boarding parties. I want those sleeping creatures extracted quickly and efficiently. Overlord wants them alive. All of them, Commander. Vex clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. Most of them. A few casualties during collection are acceptable. These humans are soft. They will not survive rough handling. The crew laughed, a harsh clicking sound that echoed through the ship. Soft creatures, sleeping prey, easy glory. They had no idea that in 14 cycles, most of them would be dead. The human fleet drifted in silence, unaware of the danger approaching. Inside the Park slept his frozen sleep, dreaming of nothing, waiting for a wake-up call that was about to come 300 years too late. The galaxy had changed while humanity slept. It had become a darker place, a place where hope had died and only the strong survived. But they had forgotten something important. Strength was not only measured in claws and armor and venom. Sometimes, The most dangerous creatures were the ones who looked weak. Sometimes the prey became the predator. The humans were about to remind the galaxy of this truth. The alarm was the first thing Park heard in 300 years. It screamed through the frozen silence of the tearing him from the nothing place of sleep. His body convulsed as warmth flooded back into his veins. His lungs burned with the first real breath. Ice cracked and fell from his skin like broken glass. He opened his eyes and saw chaos. Red emergency lights painted everything in blood colors. The ship was shaking, groaning, protesting against some massive force. And the alarm kept screaming over and over the same desperate message. Hostile contact, all hands to emergency stations. Forced his body to move. 3 centuries of sleep made his muscles weak, his thoughts slow. But training was stronger than weakness. He had prepared for emergencies. He had imagined scenarios exactly like this one. He just never thought they would actually happen. The bay was filled with people waking up. 50,000 humans gasping back to life, confused and terrified. Children were crying. Adults were shouting questions that nobody could answer. The noise was overwhelming. Computer croaked, his voice rough from centuries of disuse. Status report. Unknown hostile vessels have engaged the Exodus fleet. 2 colony ships have been destroyed. 4 more are under attack. Hostile boarding parties have been detected on 6 vessels, including the 2 ships destroyed. 100,000 people, gone in an instant. Felt the weight of that number settle onto his shoulders like a physical burden. Time until hostile boarding parties reach main population areas. 17 minutes. 17 minutes. Not enough time to organize a proper defense. Not enough time to evacuate. Not enough time to do anything except die. Unless they chose to fight instead. Found already moving through the chaos, shouting orders, grabbing people, forcing them toward stations. Her face was pale from sickness, but her eyes were sharp and focused. "Lieutenant," he called out, "we have 17 minutes." "I know, sir, I heard." She pointed toward a group of Marines stumbling out of their pods. "I have 40 soldiers waking up. We need weapons." "The armory is on Deck 7. It was designed for colony defense, not ship combat." "Then we use what we have. What else is on this ship that can hurt something?" Thought quickly. There was a colony ship, not a warship. It carried mining equipment, construction tools, agricultural supplies, nothing designed for combat. But desperate people could turn anything into a weapon. "Engineering section," he said. "Mining lasers, industrial cutters, explosive charges for asteroid clearing. Find she can modify them." Nodded and disappeared into the crowd. Watched her go, then turned to find Doctor helping elderly passengers out of their pods. "Doctor, I need you on the bridge. We have hostile contact with an unknown species. I need you to analyze them, find weaknesses, anything we can exploit." Looked up with confusion in his eyes. "Unknown species. We have made contact with alien life. They are trying to kill us. Analysis later, survival now." The doctor nodded and followed toward the bridge. The ship shook again, harder this time. Through the viewing windows, could see one of the other colony ships breaking apart, fire blooming in the void where 50,000 dreams had just ended. 3 ships now, 150,000 dead. He ran faster. The bridge was a mess of flickering screens and panicked crew members. Took command immediately, his voice cutting through the fear like a blade. "Everyone stop. Listen to me. We did not cross 300 years of darkness to die as cattle. Every person on this ship has a job. Do your job. Stay calm. We will survive this." He did not know if he believed his own words, but the crew needed to believe, so he made them believe. "Show me the enemy," he ordered. The main screen displayed the hostile vessels. They were ugly things, all sharp angles and dark metal, designed to intimidate and terrify. Their weapons glowed with deadly energy. "Computer, can you identify the species?" "Species identified. Classification, extremely hostile. Current galactic status, dominant empire controlling 3 galactic arms. Warning, do not accept surrender or negotiate peace treaties." "Of course they don't," muttered. The deck shuddered. Somewhere in the lower levels, the boarding parties had breached the hull. "Sir," a crew member called out, "they're inside. Multiple contact points on decks 12 through 14. 12 minutes until they reached the main population areas. 12 minutes of life remaining for 50,000 people unless something changed." Open the ship-wide communication channel. "All hands, this is the captain. We have hostile boarders. They are coming to kill us or enslave us. We will not allow either. Every person who can hold a weapon, report to the defense stations. Every person who cannot, move to the emergency shelters. This is our home. We will defend it." In the engineering section, worked with desperate speed. She had already modified 3 mining lasers, boosting their power output far beyond safety limits. They would burn out after a few shots, but those few shots would be devastating. "These things were designed to cut through rock," she explained to the Marines gathering around her. "Rock is harder than armor. Point and fire. Do not miss." Organize the defenders into 3 groups, 40 Marines, 200 civilian volunteers, 12 minutes of preparation. It was not enough. It could never be enough. But they prepared anyway. The first appeared on deck 14, 8 minutes earlier than expected. They were nightmares made flesh, massive creatures with black armor and razor claws. Their eyes reflected light like pools of oil. The lead saw the humans waiting for them and made a sound that might have been laughter. "Soft creatures," it said in broken common tongue. "Sleep time over, pain time now." Raised her modified mining laser. "You first," she said and fired. The beam hit thee in the chest and burned straight through. The creature screamed, a horrible sound that echoed through the corridor. It fell, smoke rising from the hole where its heart had been. The other hesitated. They had expected sleeping prey. They had expected easy victory. They had not expected this. "Push forward," shouted. "Drive them back." The humans charged. It was not a fair fight. They were stronger, faster, better equipped. But the humans had something they did not understand. They had 3 centuries of compressed rage. They had the fury of a species that had lost everything and refused to lose anything more. They had nothing left to fear, because they had already survived the death of their world. The battle for the lasted 6 hours. When it ended, every boarder was dead. The humans had paid a terrible price. 237 defenders killed, twice that number wounded. The ship itself was badly damaged, bleeding air and power into the void. But they had won. Park stood among the bodies of the fallen enemy and felt something strange. Not victory, not relief. Determination. "Get me a communication channel to the other ships," he ordered. "We need to know who else survived." The galaxy had tried to kill humanity while they slept. Humanity was awake now. And they were very, very angry. The news spread across the galaxy like fire in dry grass. Someone had someone had killed soldiers and destroyed ships. Someone had fought back and won. In the scattered refugee stations where the last survivors of conquered species hid, people whispered the impossible word: hope. Park stood on the bridge of and studied the damage reports. Of the 11 human ships that had been attacked, only 6 remained. 300,000 humans, reduced to 180,000 in a single day. It was a devastating loss, but it was also a beginning. "Captain," Doctor said, approaching with a tablet full of data, "I have completed my analysis of the soldiers we killed. They are impressive creatures, strong, fast, well-armored, but they have weaknesses." "Tell me." "Their communication relies heavily on pheromones. They release chemical signals to coordinate attacks and share information. If we can disrupt those signals, we can confuse them, break their formations. Nodded slowly. What else? Their exoskeletons are strong, but they evolved on a high-gravity world. They are heavy. In lower-gravity environments, they become clumsy, and they are extremely confident, arrogant even. They do not expect resistance. When they encounter it, they become disorganized. Arrogance, the weakness of all conquerors, filed that information away for later. Engineer entered the bridge with grease on her hands and exhaustion in her eyes. She had not slept since the battle. "I have been working with the other ships," she reported. "We have enough materials to build proper weapons. Kinetic cannons, missile systems, defensive shields. It will take time, but we can turn these colony ships into warships." "How much time?" 6 months, maybe less if we get help. Help, that was the problem. Humanity was alone in a hostile galaxy, outnumbered, and they needed allies. Turned to Lieutenant, who was coordinating with the other surviving ships. "Have we received any communications from other species?" "Several, sir. There's something called the Lumen. They want to meet us. They say they have a proposition." "Arrange a summit. We need friends." The meeting took place on a neutral station, a rusted platform drifting in unclaimed space. Representatives from 4 species gathered in a cramped conference room, humans and Lumen. Ambassador Shin represented humanity. She had been a diplomat on Earth before the evacuation, skilled in the art of words and persuasion. She looked at the alien faces around the table and felt the weight of her species' future pressing down on her. They were tall and thin, with skin like gray parchment and large, thoughtful eyes. They had been scholars and scientists before they came. Now they were refugees, their great libraries burned, their knowledge preserved only in memory. They were warriors, muscular, scaled, proud. They had fallen after a decade of brutal resistance. The survivors carried scars on their bodies and hatred in their hearts. The Lumen were small and delicate, their skin faintly glowing with bioluminescence. They had been artists and philosophers. They had nearly exterminated them. "You are the humans," the representative said. His name was difficult to pronounce, so he simply asked to be called Teacher. "You are the ones who killed the boarders." "We are," replied, "though we lost many of our own in the process." "How?" the representative demanded. Her name was earned in battle against the Dominion. "How did soft creatures like you defeat soldiers? We are stronger than you, faster, better armed, and we lost." Considered the question carefully. How had they won? The answer was not simple. "We had nothing left to lose," she finally said. "Our world was destroyed before we ever left it. We spent 300 years sleeping in coffins, dreaming of a future that might never come. When we woke up to violence, we did not hesitate. We could not afford hesitation." "Desperation is not a strategy," said. "Desperation gets you killed." "Not desperation, determination. There is a difference." Leaned forward. "We know what it means to face extinction. We crossed the universe because our home was dying. We understand loss. We understand sacrifice. And we refuse to accept defeat for ourselves and for anyone willing to stand beside us." The room fell silent. The other species looked at each other with uncertain expressions. Teacher spoke first. "They have knowledge, scientific understanding that they stole but never truly learned. We can share this knowledge with you." "They have warriors," added reluctantly. "Not many, but they are experienced. They know how to fight." "The Lumen have networks," the Lumen representative whispered. Her name was Glow. "Intelligence systems the Dominion never discovered. We know where their fleets move, what their plans are." Felt hope stirring in her chest. Separate, these species were broken and defeated. Together, they might be something more. "And the humans," Glow asked, "what do you offer?" Smiled. "We offer creativity, adaptability, and the stubborn refusal to die quietly." Over the following months, the coalition came together. It was not easy. The species did not trust each other. Old conflicts surfaced. Disagreements became arguments. Arguments nearly became violence. But Captain Park held them together. He listened to every complaint. He mediated every dispute. He reminded them again and again of the enemy waiting outside. They want us to fight each other, he told them. They conquer divided peoples. If we remain divided, we will die. The only question is whether we die alone or die together. Slowly, unity emerged from chaos. General, a military strategist who had been frozen since Earth's final days, took command of coalition tactics. He studied battle recordings and found patterns. They are predictable, he announced at a strategy meeting. They always use the same formations, the same approaches. They have not faced real resistance in 2 centuries. They have forgotten how to adapt. And we have never stopped adapting, added. It is all we know how to do. The weapons she designed were unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Crude, brutal, effective. Kinetic cannons that fired metal slugs at incredible speeds, nuclear-tipped missiles, chemical weapons that disrupted pheromone communication. The other species were horrified by some of the designs. These weapons are savage, teacher said, studying the plans for a fragmentation bomb. War is savage, replied without emotion. We did not start this fight, but we will finish it. Months passed. The coalition grew stronger. Refugee ships were armed. Warriors were trained. Intelligence was gathered. And far across the galaxy, Overlord learned about the strange alliance forming at the edge of his empire. Humans, he mused, studying the reports. They should be dead. They should be slaves. Instead, they are building an army. Should we attack them now? His advisors asked. Considered the question. Part of him wanted to crush this rebellion immediately, but another part of him recognized an opportunity. No, he decided. Let them gather. Let them believe they have a chance. When we destroy them, we will destroy everyone who dared to hope. The galaxy will learn that defiance against thee is always, always punished. He began assembling the largest fleet in Dominion history. The final battle was coming, and both sides were ready to fight to the death. Nexus Station floated at the crossroads of 3 galactic arms. Once, it had been a trading hub where species from across the universe met to exchange goods and ideas. Now it was the coalition's final stronghold. If Nexus fell, the rebellion ended. Park stood on the command deck of watching the coalition fleet assemble around him. 300 warships. Most were converted civilian vessels, armed with improvised weapons and crewed by refugees who had never fired a shot before the war began. Against them came the Dominion. 10,000 warships, the full might of an empire that had conquered half the galaxy. Overlord intended to crush the rebellion so completely that no one would ever dare resist again. Enemy fleet entering the system, Lieutenant reported. Her voice was calm, but her hands were tight on the console. 10,000 contacts, approaching in standard formation. Time to contact. 14 hours. 14 hours until the end of everything. Felt the weight of 300,000 human lives pressing on his shoulders. Not just humans, Lumen, all the species who had trusted humanity to lead them. Open a channel to the fleet, he ordered. Every ship in the coalition heard his voice. This is Captain Park of the. In a few hours we will face the largest enemy force ever assembled. They expect us to run. They expect us to surrender. They expect us to die easily. He paused, looking at the faces of his crew. Fear, determination, pride. We will disappoint them. The battle began at dawn, a meaningless term in space, but humans needed their rituals. The first wave of ships crashed against the coalition defensive line like a wave against rocks. Energy weapons lit up the void. Ships exploded in silent blossoms of fire. Bodies tumbled through space, frozen and forgotten. General coordinated the defense from his command ship. His voice was everywhere, directing movements, calling reinforcements, exploiting every weakness in the formation. Science vessels concentrate fire on their communication arrays. Strike teams hit their supply ships. Human missile batteries hold until my signal. The coalition fought with desperate courage. For every ship they lost, they destroyed 2 enemy vessels. But the numbers were against them. For every 2 ships destroyed, 5 more appeared. Hour after hour the battle raged. The coalition was pushed back, step by bloody step. On the damage reports came in faster than could process them. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. Engine 2 is offline. We have lost contact with the and the morning light. Absorbed each loss like a physical blow, but he did not waver. He could not waver. Sir, engineer called from her station, we are running out of ammunition. We have maybe 2 hours of fighting capacity left. 2 hours, not enough. They were endless. Had known this moment would come. He had planned for it, but planning for death and accepting it were different things. He turned to, Lieutenant, transfer command of the fleet to General. You will take over as captain of the. His eyes widened, Sir. You heard me. That is an order. Captain, what are you planning? Walked to the main console and activated a file labeled Protocol Sunrise. The ship systems responded immediately, displaying calculations that made his face go pale. This reactor, explained quietly, modified with technology. If we overload it at the heart of the enemy formation, the resulting explosion will destroy everything within a 1,000-kilometer radius. That would kill you. Yes. Sir, no, there has to be another way. There is not. His voice was gentle but firm. They will not stop until they see something that terrifies them. We will give them terror. We will give them a sacrifice so absolute that they will never forget what humans are willing to do. He looked at his crew, the people who had followed him across 300 years and countless battles. I am not asking anyone to come with me. This is my choice. The bridge was silent for a long moment, then stepped forward. Where you go, I go, sir. Engineer stood from her station. Someone needs to keep the engines running. You will need me. Doctor removed his glasses and cleaned them slowly. I have spent my entire life studying alien life. It seems fitting that I die teaching them something about human life. One by one, 100 crew members volunteered. 100 souls who chose death so that others might live. Looked at them with pride and sorrow. Thank you, all of you. He opened a communication channel to the coalition fleet. This is Captain Park. Humanity does not ask others to sacrifice what we will not give ourselves. Hold the line. We will open the door. The turned toward the heart of the formation. Her engines burned bright. Her weapons fired continuously, clearing a path through the enemy fleet. Overlord watched the single human ship charge toward his position with confusion. What were they doing? It was suicide. Destroy that vessel, he commanded. 1,000 weapons turned on her shields failed. Her hull was torn apart piece by piece. Fire bloomed in compartment after compartment. But she did not stop. Park stood at the helm, hands steady, eyes forward. Through the viewing window he could see his flagship, the Devourer, growing larger with every second. Captain, reported through gritted teeth, reactor overload at 90%, 60 seconds to detonation. Hold course. They was dying, her crew was dying, but they pushed forward anyway, refusing to stop, refusing to surrender. Finally understood, horror spread across his alien features. Retreat, he screamed, all ships retreat. Too late. They reached the center of the formation. Her reactor hit critical mass, and Park, in his final moment, smiled. For Earth, he whispered, for humanity, for everyone. The explosion was blinding. 1,700 warships vanished in an instant. The Devourer was consumed completely, Overlord and his command staff erased from existence. The fleet did not retreat in an orderly fashion. They fled. They ran. For the first time in 2 centuries, the greatest military power in the galaxy experienced pure terror. The Coalition did not let them escape easily. The survivors chased the broken Dominion fleet across 3 star systems, destroying every ship they could catch. When the battle finally ended, they had lost nearly half their forces. Their supreme commander was dead. Their myth of invincibility was shattered. The war was not over. It would continue for years, but the outcome was no longer certain. Months later, Ambassador Shin stood before the newly formed Galactic Assembly. The chamber was filled with representatives from a dozen species, some old enemies, some new allies, all united by what they had witnessed at Nexus Station. Humanity came to the stars looking for a new home, said. We found something better. We found a family worth fighting for. Captain Park understood this. He gave his life not for humanity alone, but for all of us. She paused, looking at the faces around her. We are not the strongest species. We are not the fastest or the most advanced. But we have learned something that the never understood. True strength is not measured in weapons or armies. True strength is measured in what you are willing to sacrifice for others. The chamber was silent. Then slowly, the representatives began to applaud. It spread through the room like a wave, building and building until the walls themselves seemed to shake. Humanity had found its place among the stars. And the galaxy would never be the same. Far away, on a small ship carrying refugees to a new colony world, a child asked her mother about the war. Who won, Mama? The mother smiled and pointed toward the stars. We all did, little one, we all did.